Evening, TDN listeners and viewers, and of course, my fans on this week in interview. Welcome to the first episode of season 14 of this week in interview. I hope that you had a great end of the year, and that you have a tremendous year. Your 2024 has started with a bang. Welcome to you and our regular listeners. Thank you for coming back to share with us on this week in interview. I'm excited for this year. I hope you too have some exciting plans and goals and aspirations for your new year. So gather around. I have two of the usual, I don't want to call them suspects, but two of my usual friends on with me tonight, Mr. Lennon Matthew and Alvin Thomas. And of course, we are going to be talking about their recent trip to Dominica over the Christmas season, their experiences, what they saw, their opinions, as opportunities, risk, all of those things we're going to be talking about in the next hour. So stay tuned for that. We're going to take our usual quick intro break, and when we come back, we also have some somber news that we got this year. This morning, as a matter of fact. Um, and so we will deal with that as well. But we'll be right back. Stay tuned, grab your drink, share the live, let people know that we are on, and we'll see you right back. All right, welcome back. Welcome back. Thanks for staying through the break. And of course, if tonight is the first time that you're joining us on this weekend interview, my objective is to bring you back every week. How many more weeks left in the year? 50. So I'm going to bring you back 50 more times. Make sure that you like what you hear so much on this weekend interview that you make us part of your weekly schedule. And so right now is episode number one of 2024, our 14th season of This Week in Interview. And at the beginning of the year, I always like to encourage you to set goals, outline your aspirations for the year, or for yourself, for your family, for your country, and all of those things. Like the new year is a good time to really get into that kind of a vibe. People call it New Year's resolution, and they say, I don't believe in New Year's resolution, and all of that. But it's not so much New Year's resolution than, having to take a pause and take stock of where you are, and where you would like to be, and looking back on the previous year and celebrate what you achieved, and also take stock of where things could have been better. And of course, we had a stark reminder of why it is that we have to make sure that we plan to maximize our time here on earth. This morning we got the really sad news of our friend Miss Dinah Frampton transitioning to the afterlife. She died this morning, from what we understand, at the hospital in Dominica, and our heartfelt condolences go out to her family and the Dominican public in general, because she definitely was an asset and a gem to Dominica. And so, before I bring on my guests, I would like to just take a moment, and to just show our respect and our gratefulness for the contribution that she has made. If you see her up on the screen, Miss Ferdinand Frampton, she she was an actor on our radio drama series Redemption Road. So she was part of the TDN family, and of course she will be missed. The last conversation I had with her towards the end of the year, She was telling me that she was taking a little break from doing her program, and when she came back on, she would let me know because I invited her to be a guest on this weekend interview, and she heartily agreed. We'll have to conduct this interview in a different realm. But to her family and friends, thank you so much for sharing her with us, and may she find eternal peace. And for I know a few people who were great fans of Fodina, Miss Frampton, and of course the folks at Flow, where she worked, at Q95, just in general. She touched so many areas of them. Carnival was a thing because she used to be involved in most of the carnival shows and so on. And we heard of the sudden passing of someone so young and so vivacious and so full of life, and our hearts are broken today. And so, Fudina, we wish you heartfelt, your family heartfelt condolences. So I'm going to bring on my guests, Alvin and Len, and of course, I'm sure they will want to maybe start off as well, in saying a few words of condolences to about Fudina and to her family. So let's go first to Alvin. My brother, Happy New Year to you. Welcome to this weekend interview, the first episode for season 14. I'm going to give you a moment to make a few remarks about the passing of Fodina before we start off our conversation, planned conversation.
Yes, Tony. Good evening. Good evening to you and your many fans and listeners who are tuning to the program this evening. Um, I want to say a special good evening as well to my buddy friend there, um, Lennon. He's I consider him sometimes my adopted son. Although sometimes he get out of line. But a pleasant good evening to all. It's a new year, and as you said, it's the first program for the year. So uh, I really want to.
You just muted your mic, Alvin.
Yeah, can you hear me
Okay,
now?
I
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay. Okay. I want to take this opportunity to wish all the fans and the new persons on TDN Radio Happy New Year, 2024. I would hope is going to be a very productive year for all of us. Yes, you mentioned Fodina, and like you, and I'm sure many others who are tuned into the program this evening, it came as a complete shock to us. As you rightly indicated, I was in Dominica last month, spent Christmas there, did a 2-week stint there. And I was fortunate to have met Fodina. I went into Flow to do a transaction, and here was Fodina, and she ran up to me, "Hey, Alvin, you in Dominica, boy, what you doing here?" And we were so happy to run into each other, and we exchanged some pleasantries. And she went on to say, "Look, this year, you got to be on this um, in the spotlight this year. You're not letting me down this year, like you let me down last year. You got to be for this year coming. You're gonna have to, take my invitation." I tell her, "Sure, man, we'll talk." And we spoke for a little while, and I left. And then when I came back up to the States, a very good friend of hers called me and said, "Me find you up for Dinah is hospitalized." I said, "You really? You kidding?" She says, "Yes." She went into the hospital, had some medical concerns, and she went in. So I say, "Wow." And that was like 2 weeks ago, I think, when we spoke, the start of the new year. And then this morning now, my phone is flooding. I'm getting phone calls telling me if I didn't hear that Fodina passed. I said, "What?" I mean, so it was really, really, really a shock to me, I'm telling you. Um, Sheridan called me, of course, because, she'd been doing that program on Q for at least 10 years now. I think last year the program did it 10th year. And Sheridan called me and said, "Man, Alvin, you heard the news?" I said, "Yes." And, he told me, "Can you put something together?" I said, "But Sheridan, I don't even know if I can think. My brain cannot think now to put anything together. But I will look at it and I'll get back to you." So it's really, it came as a big shock. And incidentally, Tony, she passed during Carnival. As you know, Fodina been actively involved in Carnival with Queen Show. with the Calypso judges, and so she was one of those persons there who is a judge coordinator. She's involved in Queen Show. She's involved with all kinds of aspects of Carnival, knowing, of course, the company that she worked with, Flow themselves, are big sponsors as well of those type of activities. So, I mean, she's really, really going to be missed. So, like you, I just want to extend condolences to her family and the friends and all of the staff at Flow and everyone who knew her, to wish, um, deepest condolences and to let them know that we'll be, of course, keeping them in our prayers.
Yeah, thank you for that, Alvin. Len, I'm going to give you the opportunity to just talk about Fedina, and then we'll launch into our planned conversation.
Yes, good evening to you, Tony and Alvin, and good evening to your listeners and fans at home in Dominica and in the US and elsewhere. Um, I every year I get an opportunity to reflect on where I've been, where I'm going, and we all at some point make plans for our life. My sympathies to the family and friends of Miss Ferdinand Frampton. I don't know her personally, but I've known of her a very long time. And as Alvin indicated, I have known of her actions in Queen shows, especially. Ferdinand Frampton is like a staple. I know of her Monday shows in the spotlight. I've listened to some of the shows, and I thought that was a really, really good show where we highlight our own people. She's a public figure in Dominica, but what death does to us, and as much as we are shocked because nobody's ready, what death does to us is remind us, the folks who are living, that we all have numbered days. And the tragedy is not really in the death. The tragedy is living life without fulfilling your dreams, fulfilling your aspirations, doing the things that you want to do, because at some point we all have to go from this earth. We all have to go, and my fear is that I'm gonna live, or we're gonna live in this life without fulfilling our dreams, without making this world a better place, without fighting for our family and friends and others and uplifting people, because life is fragile. And I would want to, you know encourage the family to hold strong. It's tough, but time heals, and only the Almighty, who gives us life, knows why He takes it away. And I just want to say, she will be deeply missed by many of us in diaspora and Dominica. But we were fortunate enough to have had her share her gifts and talents, as she has molded and motivated and encouraged, the Queen shows, the in the spotlight, just highlighting the gifts and talents of people. And I think, more importantly, what we should focus on, the positive things that she has done, and to emulate, and to continue her legacy. And that's what I would add.
Yeah, well said, both of you gentlemen. Of course, we're still reeling from the shock, and I know there will be a period when we will mourn, and then it will be followed by a period of appreciation and gratitude for her contribution to Dominica
Yeah.
and to our lives. So I know it sounds really shallow right now, but we will tell her family to keep the faith and to just hold strong. Folks, if you listen, I invite you to invite your friends and your family to join us. This week in interview is on tdnradio.net, tdntv.net. It's on Facebook, our Facebook page, both This Week in Interview Facebook page and TDN Radio Facebook page. We are on Instagram on at TDN Radio Caribbean. And we are on YouTube on TDN Media Network. Just share the live. I know Sam will put up the link. There's one link there where you can get to listen on any media that you choose to listen to. So, so folks, as I said, this is season 14 of This Week in Interview. And first of all, I want to say thank you to the many folks who join us every week. And the amazing thing is that there are more people who listen to the program after the live than the live. And that tells me a lot, because you make the time to actually go look for it and to run the show and to listen to it, even if the time may clash with something else that's in your schedule. So I'm really appreciative of that. Season 14, we hope that we can start moving you towards taking action on some of the things that we talk about, moving you taking action about your health. We always put health first. um, Definitely. um, Good evening, Cuthbert Joseph, my nephew. Thank you so much for the wishes, and good and all the best to you as well. I know Fredina was your fellow actor. She was an actress on Redemption Road. Lean Austria as well, saying hi to Len. But um, health is first. You always have to put health first, because it doesn't matter what else you achieve. If you don't have the health, you cannot make full use of the resources that are available to you, your talents and your abundance and so on. So we wish you health. We wish you to take control of your health. Choose one thing to do at a time. If you feel you can do better with your diet, then make some choices. We have the internet that's just so full of information. Get some research. Just make one change. Maybe take one meal with less sugar or less starch or less carbohydrates, maybe a smaller portion, maybe skip one meal, maybe don't eat meat for one day out of the week. Whatever you choose one thing. Or it may be that you decide to become more active. So you park your car a little further away from where you're going to go and you walk. Or if you're going to government headquarters, you don't look for a parking right next to government headquarters. You park as soon as you get into Roseau and you walk to government headquarters. And if your life allows it, you wake up in the morning and you go for a walk. Or if, like, I remember when I used to work in Portsmouth, every morning I used to go to the beach. I used to go take a swim first thing in the morning. I used to live with Mr. Claters Green, and he used to do that, and I followed him every single morning. We would go to Purple Turtle Beach and swim for about an hour before we started our day. So I want you to make a commitment to your health. Importantly, make appointments to go take care of yourself. Men, go check your prostate. Women, do your cervical exam, do your breast exam. If you haven't done a colonoscopy for a while, go do that. Put your health first, and then pick something else, one other area of your life where you want to make a change. That's all. If you have the capacity to do more than that, by all means go ahead, but I'm just encouraging you to do two of those things. Something about your health as a compulsory, and then choose one other optional area, whether it's your finances, whether it's your relationships, whether it's your own spiritual grounding, whatever it is that you choose two things and set goals for them. And as we go along, as we always do, we'll check in every once in a while at the end of the quarter and so on. Now, I want to take the conversation that we have tonight to another realm. We've dealt on the personal level. And as Len said, the start of the year is a good time to take a little stock of where we are in life. And I want to take it to um, our country. Most of us are Dominicans on this program. It's not all Dominicans, but they are. I know we have some St. Vincent and Grenada and so on. Patricia Fontaine says, "Your health is your wealth." I agree with that completely, Patricia. Um, so I want to take it to country. And both Alvin and Len, like myself, we are living in a land that's not our homeland. And every day we wake up, I am sure I can speak for them that some of our very first thoughts every day is starts in Dominica. It's like I wake up in Castlebrus every morning, and then I have to remind myself that I'm no longer in Castlebrus. I'm in New York. But Alvin and Len had the good fortune to go to Dominica in December, and they actually spent Christmas in Dominica. I mean, I haven't spent a
He
Christmas in
sounds
Dominica.
jealous, Len. He sounds
I,
jealous. You
I
don't
am.
see fortune. He sounds jealous, man.
I am very jealous. I haven't spent a Christmas in Dominica in
Well,
almost 20 years.
I'm not sure if you want to hear of our exploits. That might you might just cut off the program.
But no, I want to hear it because that is what I want. And actually, so that is what the program is about tonight, folks. I invited these two gentlemen to come on and to share with us their experiences in Dominica. And let me just say, it's already 8:21. I'm pretty sure all this program will go beyond 9 o'clock, so we'll just tag it for 9:30 if my guests will indulge me. Um, I want, Len, I'm going to start with you this time. You know, I'll just talk in general, and we can always bring it and narrow it down to specific areas. But I don't know how long it was before you had gone to Dominica before this last trip. But
Yeah.
on this last trip, tell us about your experience landing in Dominica, being in Dominica. What did it feel like?
Well. This trip was pretty unique. The last time I went was in 2018. So I've gone back home several times at different intervals. So I went in, from since I've been here, I went in 02, sorry, 05, 7, 8, 12, 13, 15, 17, 18. Some of them was for funerals, family passed away.
Hmm.
But this time was extra special in the sense that a couple of my kids had not been to Dominica. So the two little ones had not been. It was their first time. But they will tell you that all daddy talks about is Dominica. My son wrote stuff in his school, and I read it. It was so funny. And he said his daddy just thinks about Dominica all the time. So my trip to Dominica was to view through their lens, through their eyes, through them, because they had not been home. And to tell you the truth, I'll talk about them because really and truly, that's why we fight for the country. The kids got home and surprised me because for people who have not been to the island, the very first day we landed, they just fit right in. And if you didn't hear them talk, you would think they were kids who had been born in Dominica. Well, part of the reason is where I am in Texas, at home in the US, the food I cook is Dominican food. The music I play is mostly Dominican music. I mean, on a weekend, I would cook green bananas and saltfish. I make broth, pilau, bakes. That's some of the things that I do up here. I do at home. That's what they used to. So I think it made it very easy for them to transition when they got home. And there is something about home that really draws you to Dominica. I think for everybody, it doesn't matter what circumstance you grew up in a country, just the place that you've grown up, the happiest moments in your time when you try to form yourself, I think it becomes part of you. You take that part of you and you go away, and I personally believe that it is transferred to your kids based on how I saw those kids behave. And even after 2 weeks, while I'm thinking, hey, it's time for me to go back. It's time for me to go back. The kids look like they didn't want to leave. So,
Mm.
so after two and a half weeks, I'm like, okay, it's time for me to go back. They're the ones that telling me, hey, we want to stay. My son said, man, this is a place that he could build a hotel. He's 12. And my daughter says, if I had all the comfort I had in at home, at my home, I could stay here. So that alone was an experience for me, Drago, believe it or not, because I was born and raised there. I know what to expect. But just seeing Dominica through their lens and seeing how they reacted to the place for the first time, I think that was more special. But in Dominica, it's I grew up in Benz, so I spend most of my time in Portsmouth. My wife is from Portsmouth, and I was able to go through the Siwenal. We have what they call the Siwenal in
Hmm.
December,
Uh-huh.
where some people apparently in Dominica don't even know Siwenal exists.
Oh, really?
So yes, which was kind of strange. So I'm telling them about it, and then while I'm out there, like about 12 in the night, we had a Christmas dinner at my mom's place, and all I hear is Len the Siwenal coming down, and before you know it, I had a drum on my side from Bensto and Sola. so so the community knows me that anytime I'm in Dominica during December, if there's a Siwen and I'm home and you don't see me in there, something's wrong. So I have a reputation as soon as there's a Siwen. And the funny thing about it, my dad used to do that a whole lot when he was in his younger days.
Mm.
And I think it's just something that's in us that during Christmas time, whenever there's Siwen, I get involved.
Mm.
Just doing the things that you haven't done for a little while. We were able to plant some trees. I took the kids. We planted some fruit trees in the garden. We went up to one of the areas called Chaudière. We visited sites in Dominica and Soufriere. We went up to some of the Scott said, sorry, went up to Soufriere, visit some of the, the cabarets, and just showing the kids around, enjoying the food, enjoying seeing people you have not seen for a long time. And that's their allure to Dominica. It's a slow pace, it's a peaceful place. The people, as always, are still warm and friendly, especially your old friends. There's always some food cooking somewhere. Somebody stopped, they have a broth with smoked meat. And one lady made some smoked meat with red beans, and the food is so different. That's it's just something about when you get home, put everything aside, you go see friends, you go see family, you enjoy the food, the music. I mean, that's what pulls us to the place. So that trip was pretty unique because I had the kids home for the first time, and it was more about them trying to enjoy it. I didn't get to go all the places that I wanted to. I didn't get to see all the family and friends that I wanted to. There's some communities I still didn't get a chance to go. So I know I'm gonna get a beating for that, but
They understand. They
I,
understand.
I apologize to those I had not seen. But Drago, I think that was the most important part for me, is just seeing how the kids who had never been there just fit in. They just fit in, like that was their home. And my daughter said, she can't wait to go home. And that touched me, for somebody who had not been there to think of Dominica as home. I think that was pretty special. So, all in all, going back home for Christmas, and growing up in Dominica, that was my two favorite times in Dominica were Christmas and Independence, because of, we don't, in Dominica, it was not about the gifts and the money and the spending. But every Christmas I raise pigs, so we'd slaughter some pigs, and we'd sell the meat. Buy beef, and you'd make my mom would make some good soup, and they would go. They had the social league. They would go from house to house, enjoying some cake and ginger wine. And as little boys, we'd wait when everybody leaves the home, and we go drink ourselves. And before you know it, after a couple houses, we inebriated more than we should be at a really young age. So those kind of memories, those kind of fun times, I think that's what makes the place special. That's what made the trip really enjoyable.
Certainly, certainly. Thank you for sharing that. And when you told the story, we were right there with you and your boy and your girl and your
Yeah,
your family.
yeah,
It must be gratifying. Um, it must be gratifying to see your kids embrace your homeland
yeah,
like that.
yeah. I think that
Um,
that was the icing on the cake, man.
Definitely. My kids are all, except for one, my kids were all born in Dominica, so they do have memories of Dominica. And they go back more often than I do. Um, but no, I get what you say. And like last time I was in Dominica, I hadn't been there for a while, and I landed in Dominica. I just felt so at home. You know, um, go to my friends, and it's like you said, a Braff. I go by Beryl in Taro, and there's a Chateau Water and all that kind of stuff. Alvin, I know you. What was your experience like in Dominica? Did you? I hear you didn't want to come back. Is that true?
Well, it's my country, yeah. So I mean, as I always tell people, no matter how long I live in the United States, I'm just here physically, but my heart and everything is in Dominica. But unlike Len, I didn't have the luxury of family with me. Of course, my kids are grown and they go more often than I do. As a matter of fact, they're going down next month for Carnival. My two boys are going down.
Mm,
So they visit all the time. I had not been down in a while. I think the last time might be, I would say, boy, maybe 8, if not 9 years. And I just felt there was something in me. I don't know. There was something in me that was telling me, look, you need to go down there and check the vibes, as we say in local parlance. Go check the vibes. Go make your eye boil your peas. And like some of you may have heard, one of the motivating factors that had me to go down there as well was this murder incident in Soufriere, Scott said Galia. And a good buddy of mine, Jeff Bellot, who lives in Wisconsin, wanted to go down there and meet with the villagers. Since up until that time when we went there, I got in there on the 17th of December, and I was on March the 18th, and the 19th of December, we planned a meeting with the villagers, and that was the first time that government, in the person of the prime minister, made a statement on the murder. And up until the time when we visited the folks in that community, no government official had met with the people. So that was one of the motivating factors that Jeff called me and he said, man, I'm going down. You want to come down and we could, do something with the folks? And I said, yeah, sure. And I went down there. Like Glenn, of course, once you go to Dominica, man, it's home. It's home. You land, that plane land, and you put your feet down on that ground and you driving through, heading into Roseau. Bosso picked me up and you start smelling that smell of the forest and the smoke and the whole aura gives you a complete different feeling. You breathe the air. As a matter of fact, when I landed, I called my son, my last born. I told him, I just landed. And so he tells boss, so make sure you take Mr. by the river, to wet his face with some water. so, I mean, so it was really nice. I hadn't spent Christmas there in a long time, a really long time. And I was able to spend Christmas there and, of course, met with quite a few of my folks, quite a few of my friends. Of course, there are many of my friends who have migrated who are in the U.S., like Len, yourself, several others. But still, there are a few back home that I was able to connect with and had some good conversation. So it was nice. It was nice. Let me. Having said that, I'm sure once we go further into the discussion and we start looking at more aspect of the visit in terms of the economy and all of that, we'll have a different perspective. But I will say though that from what I've seen so far, Dominica has tremendous potential. That's a thing that blows my mind. I mean, I went to Scott
that was going to be my next question. My next question was, what if you had to containerize your main takeaway? What was your main takeaway from Dominica? Is it that Dominica has tremendous potential? You would say was your
Oh yes, there's tremendous potential. And contrary to what some people may tend to say, more so the government, that Dominicans lazy, they don't want to work, blah blah blah, and all that kind of stuff. That's not the case. Dominicans are hardworking anywhere you go. I mean, Len is in Texas, you are in New York, I'm in Atlanta. And we know how hard we work, and Dominicans that we know work. Who either have your own business or work with a company. I remember when I was with my company before, the company I worked with before I retired. They used to tell me all the time, get people like me to work for them. Boy, do you know, how can I get somebody like you to come and work, to employ? I'm telling you, my kid at school, my last boy finished high school in the States. And when I go to the teacher-parent meetings, the teacher used to say, can you get some more kids like your son for me? Because of the discipline the young man had and how he applied himself to his work and that kind of thing. So Dominica has tremendous potential. Having said that, however, there are some serious barriers.
Let's hold on the barrier so while. Let me go to Len
Okay.
and get Len
Okay.
number one takeaway. Len,
Sure. Go
if
ahead.
you had to say what was your main takeaway from your visit? Is
I
your mic
think you're muted,
you
Mike. You're
muted, Len?
muted.
Uh,
Len, you're muted.
yeah, I was thinking that you were trying to see which one was number one.
Well, my main takeaway really is how much things have not changed a whole lot in terms of the livelihood of people. As much as we love the what reminds us of home, the traditions, the siwenal, the broth, you know, it seems like, whenever you get back to the community, I go back 15 years, I get to Ben's, it's the same deal. The economy of the villages are not as it used to be, because back in the days you would have most of the community areas had bananas, fishermen, and when banana was king, a lot of little shops were in the communities, and every week people would be harvesting bananas, going to Longhouse and those areas. You don't see that anymore. You don't see a lot of economic activities in some of the communities, except some snack eats and bars and stuff by the road where they have the frying some fish or some chicken. So a lot. I think as much as they talk about we build roads, we build hospitals, we build, but there is something about the personal growth and development that is stagnated. You don't see it in people's lives. I don't know how to explain it so that it makes a whole lot of sense, but a lot of things have not changed over the past 20 something years since I've been there. I mean, when I drove from the airport, like we say, when we get to Dominica, there is something about the country that allures you. It's the nostalgia of growing up in there. But the roads are worst from Melvin Hall to Ansdeme because of the construction of the international airport. The roads have deteriorated. So back in the days when Sintra built that road, it was probably one of the best roads in the country. And the state of the road sometimes is a reflection of where the country has been, where it has not been maintained. It's been destroyed. Some of the bridges, especially in Benz, doesn't have side railings. It's breaking down, and it doesn't seem like we are doing things, but we are getting nowhere. In terms of the economy, that's what I kind of see in the islands. So with all the money and stuff you're spending, you don't see the development, the transformation in people's lives where, folks can build homes. I know close people, close family members who working for the government, who have decent jobs and they still at their parents' home. They can't buy a piece of land. They can't build their homes. And it's, I heard personal stories. And on that aspect of it, I think Drywood, there's a lot more to be done. Like I said, the culture, the nostalgia, that you can't take away. Going to the sites, going to the places, doing the things that make us happy, it's there. Dominicans are lovely people, a good bunch of people, like having a good time. But I think when it comes for personal development, for me, example, what I do as a geologist and environmental consultant, I wouldn't be able to do that in Dominica. And after 19 years, I haven't seen much application of my field in the island, also, although it's a much needed field. So, on that personal level, on that aspect, I haven't seen much change. But like, it's home, and I think that's my take from
All right,
what I
thank you for that. Alvin, I'm going to come back to you, and I stopped you a little while ago talking about where your statement was, but there were barriers. Let's go back to that thought. What barriers? Barriers to what?
Yeah.
That
Yeah. Let me in answering that question, let me kind of juxtapose to something that I read a couple days ago. There is an organization called the Thomson Reuters Institute, TOMSON, Reuters, REUTERS Institute, and you can find them on the ThomsonReuters.com. And they were doing a sort of prediction of 2024 and just kind of outline what the world is going to look like. Because at the end of the day, Tony, we are not operating in isolation. As they say, if the U.S. sneezes, we catches the cold. And we know what happens with this whole question of climate change and the impact that it has on vulnerable states like ours. And they underscored 3 challenges that the world is going to face. The number one challenge they have is democracy under attack. And what I'm going to say to the question you asked me touches on that to some extent. They talk about democracy under attack. And they said it will be a decisive moment for the future of American democracy, as we know what's happening with this year election in the US. And they also reference India with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And the second area that they highlighted has to do with a fracturing global economy. And they reference there how the supply chains and all of that. And we know what happened when COVID hit and post-COVID. So they made reference to that. And they speak about China not being as progressive as it used to be. And we know of that. China is one of our main allies, partners, if you want to put it this way. And then the other area that they mentioned has to do what the other challenge that they mentioned has to do with the fight for natural resources, challenge 3. So I at some point might reference some of the information they shared there, but it's an interesting area that you should read. You and Len could read in your spare moment. But you asked the question, and let's go back to the challenge number 1, democracy. One of the barriers I see is that there is a fear permeating throughout the country that people want to change. They realize things are not as it should be in terms of the economy. The jobs are not there. Businesses are not resilient as they should be. But they to talk, to even speak to you, to someone, Tony, for fear that something might go back and say, I see Tony talking to an opposition person, or Tony is no longer supporting the party. And for fear that they might lose the little of what they have.
It was that palpable. It was that palpable, that present.
Oh yeah. People, I mean, at some point, if you gain the trust of the individual, then they'll open up to you. But I'll also tell you, I had the opportunity to speak with folks who are strong supporter of the current administration, the Labour Party, and they admit it is not as it should be. But there is that fear from them, and even those who are considered not against them. So that is something that I think is not good. And we know, Tony, you know, and I know, and I was able to validate that while I was on island, the extent to which certain institutions are dismantled. We know this year is supposed to be, I am saying cautiously, electoral reform year, where hopefully we should see some form of legislation that reform our electoral process. And we know that everything that we might say here this evening in terms of how the economy should go, the fact that businesses are not doing as they should, and all of that stuff that we're talking about, if our democracy is at stake, nothing else happens. Because democracy is the system of government that allows people to choose their leaders and hold them accountable. And that is facing multiple threats and pressures around the world. So if our democracy, the hallmark of who and what we are as a people is threatened, then forget businesses, forget labor, forget economy, forget this, forget everything else. Because it means that we as a people, and when I say we, I'm talking about as Dominicans back home, would not be in a position to elect persons to represent them and put in place a government that would look in the best interest of people. And I can extrapolate that with all what we're seeing today. Look at what happened in health. We see the recent situation in health and the minister's response. We see the recent situation in the police and the Police Welfare Association expressing, and we see how the minister came out. We see what happened with Domlek, and we see how the prime minister, to the extent where the general manager, Batilia Mackenzie, resigned after 20-something years at the helm. So I'm saying all of this to say that if our people continued in that state of fear, where they are afraid to speak, and we see what happened with the what you call her, Sister Rosie, her match on whatever day she has it, the Monday or the Wednesday. Police will come and put a barricade and prevent people from exercising their democratic right, which is enshrined under the UN Convention. If we cannot get that fixed, everything else will say. And the last thing I will say before I stop and let Len come in, there is this challenge 3. And challenge 3 is something that we have to look at, because I said earlier that Dominica has tremendous potential. And one of the potential that Dominica can still boast of is at least of its resource and its land. And it is said there that it is mentioned there in that document that I referenced earlier that one of let me just quote something here. It says, it would be naive to say that at any point in recent history, nations have stopped competing for natural resources. The annals of the post-World War II era are replete with the strategic jostling for oil, minerals, and water, which has often dictated international relations and economic policies. So water is the new gold now. And I will say that as often as I can say it, so people who are listening will hear me. Water is the new gold now. There are countries throughout the world, which include Saudi Arabia, China, and several other big countries that are grappling for water. Okay? Fortunate Dominica still have some of that, notwithstanding some of the environmental degradation that have taken place with our rivers and all of that. We still have an abundance of water. Okay? And I'm saying that if we are not careful, we will lose that resource. That's our oil, that's our gold. And we see that Saudi Arabia now, we're in bed with Saudi Arabia. And the only reason we're in bed with Saudi Arabia is because Saudi Arabia is one of the countries in the world that has a serious major water crisis. And in the last meeting that they had in wherever they had their meeting in Saudi Arabia, that was one of the items in their 14 or 16 point declaration that they claim they wanted for Saudi Arabia wanted to be the world czar, the world water czar. I'm saying if we're
they
not
barely have
careful,
a drop
and China
of
also
fresh
is
water. And they barely have.
I'm sorry?
I say, and they barely
They
have a
barely
drop
have
of
fresh
fresh water.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
if we're not careful, we have two countries here, China and Saudi Arabia, that's going to come and take claim of that resource that we have. And once that is gone, Dominica will be left with nothing else.
Yeah.
So that is the barriers that I see. And
That
that
you
is
see.
why I think this year is a major year for us as a people, Dominicans at home and abroad, to ensure that we can claim back our country, Dominica.
Right. Thank you for that, Alvin. Len, before I go to you, I need to take a quick break. A word from our sponsors. And we'll be right back. Folks, stay tuned.
Presented by.
How much Dominican history do you know? Want to learn some fun facts? We have a great and fun way to test your knowledge and learn more about our history. Get your copy of Dominic Anu, Dominica in Puzzle. Fun for the whole family. Available now on Amazon.com. Visit pushpast10.com to learn more. Email us at dominicainpuzzle@gmail.com or call 877-698-9894.
People say I've got a great smile. Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
Good evening back. If you joined us late, my guest tonight on This Week in Interviews, Mr. Lennon Matthew and Mr. Alvin Thomas. They recently visited Dominica where they spent the Christmas season. And so I invited them on so they can talk about their experiences in Dominica. We hear so much about people say, "Oh, you guys in the diaspora, you don't know what's going on locally. You put your foot on the ground, come and do this, come and do that." Before I go further though, one of our constant sponsors on this weekend interview is Beacon Dental Health. It's a Dominican and owned, if his wife from, I think his wife Monstratian. They own Beacon Dental Health in Boston, and today happens to be Dr. Joseph birthday. So happy birthday to her. I know I see my nephew Cuthbert is on. Happy birthday to your queen. And of course, I wish her continued recovery on her long journey back to perfect health. So all the best to you, all the best to Beacon Health, um, and all the sponsors. I wish you a very prosperous 2024. Yes, folks, tonight we are talking about the experiences of Mr. Alvin Thomas and Mr. Leonard Matthew on their recent visit to Dominica. They both, gave us the idea of they enjoyed Dominica. Dominica still being a place where you can go and have fun, a place where you can go and enjoy yourself. I saw a recent post by this young man from Trinidad, Mr. Roberts, and he was on there boasting to his Trinidad folks that he could walk around Roseau and he don't have to look over his shoulder, and how Dominica is so relaxed and so nice. What I'm saying is that there's still value in Dominica from what I'm hearing from Len and from Alvin. However, I'm also hearing that there are challenges and there are threats. Alvin talked about threats to democracy. And it's as I said at the top of the program, your health is most important because without health, you cannot enjoy anything else. And from a country point of view, that sense of freedom, that democracy is equivalent to your health. Is that is the health of the country. That you at your home and your home country want to feel free. You don't want to feel that you are existing because somebody else decide to let you exist. You don't want to feel like somebody who is in power can interfere with you at any time they choose and you have very limited recourse. You don't want to feel that you're going to start a business and someone can interfere with your livelihood and you cannot really take them to court because the court system is not working the way that it should. Because what that's going to do is to diminish the aspirations and the hopes of the people because what's the sense? I work hard and then somebody can just come and fire me because they hear I was talking to Len, or somebody can just go on and announce that you shouldn't patronize Alvin business because Alvin is not supporting the government and so on. Len, I'm going to go to you and to ask you about do you have similar did you see what Alvin is talking about? Where Alvin is talking about there's a level of fear that seem to be pervasive, where people are just worried about talking that the walls may have ears that might go and repeat what they say and they get victimized. And
There,
would you sense that?
so I didn't just sense that. There is a level of victimization in Dominica. There is a level of frustration in Dominica. And it's not a matter of even sensing. Like Alvin, I did have conversations. Like I said, I grew up in Benz, and most of the people who support the governing, the ruling party are my family. You go to Benz, that's where the Fabians are. I mean, I call out the name because it's no secret. That's where the Fabians are. Most of those folks, they are diehard Labour Party supporters. Um, what I realized, not even being in Dominica, being aware and understanding what happens in Dominica, we have become a place that is ultra partisan. I think we've watered down politics to party colors, red, blue, and green, and there's not a lot of substance in why we vote, who we vote, why we support who we support. But interestingly, Alvin mentioned potential for Dominica. Drago, if you look at many of us who have migrated we've migrated because we have a lot of us had ambitions, family sent for us. And if you look at the success of Dominicans in various aspects of business, science, health, industry, that alone tells you the potential we have in Dominica. We didn't become successful up here because we came to America. We are successful because of the potential we have from home and looking for those opportunities to be more than a police officer, to be more than a teacher, and to be able to reach our full potential. My example is I went to study in the US because I needed a degree so that I can earn more money when I get to Dominica. It so happened that I guess the Americans thought that I was valuable enough to keep me up here. But when I spoke to some people who were diehard party supporters, you can hear the frustration. I had a conversation with a gentleman, and he's telling me, the district that he's responsible for, the police office. There are 22 police officers, and just one of those communities have about 3,000 people, and they only have 5 police officers in there, and they have not had a vehicle for 7 months. And I said to him, Dominicans are peaceful people. So Roberts is right. You can walk in Dominican, don't have to look over your back. And as much as there are people who give the impression that Dominicans are bad and violent, I have seen for myself that Dominicans are peaceful people. So where you have a population of over 5,000 people, you only have 22 police officers in a large land area, where the prime minister by himself and his family has over 50 something police officers and about 3 or 4 vehicles. What we have
Say
in
that again, Len. The prime minister has what?
the prime minister has about 40 to 50 police officers and probably 4 to 5 vehicles where entire divisions in Dominica has 22 police officers. And I'm driving.
You are Tony open his eyes. Tony open his eyes. Tony wants you to repeat that.
And I did not get that from the bush. I get that from the horse's mouth. There is an administrative problem in Dominica. For example, we had a conversation sometime last year with Annie Edwards when we were talking about environmental impact assessment for the airport.
Right.
And one of the things I mentioned is you cannot just do an EIA for just Wesley because there are surrounding communities that are going to be impacted. So guess what? There's a quarry, they're cutting up the road in Ansdime. These trucks move from Ansdime all the way to Wesley. The road is being destroyed, and there was no EIA done for the entire area where the trucks are going. The roads are destroyed. I can tell you that bridge in Ansdime is probably not going to last 2 years if it's not repaired or fixed. I'm telling you, I paid attention. I had a conversation with a gentleman, and he tells me, I used to be a strong supporter of the Labour Party, and I know he was, because I know exactly who he is. He still works in home. And he said, there is victimization. I cannot say anything because these people will tell lies. They will try to destroy me because I was part of the cabal. And that sort of control aligns with the destruction of democracy that Alvin talked about. What dictators try to do, they try to give you the impression that they alone can run this place. And it's not because they're interested in the people, because they're interested in themselves, their wealth, their largesse. We had a recent evidence of the medical situation. There's a letter that came out from the hospital. The doctor said that they were ceasing elective surgery because of lack of equipment. And instead, the Minister of Health do an investigation as to why they're not material supplies in the hospital to ensure that the public gets the best service. He's mad that somebody put that information in the public sphere. And there seems to be a thought in Dominica that the government is an institution by itself that does not respond to the people or should not respond to the people. Drygold, a lot of people said, Len, I hear you. Len, I hear you when you talk. What you're saying is the truth. I was able to visit Q95. They tell me, Len, I hear you. Some of us just cannot talk. Some of us, because they They don't think we support the party. We are being set aside. And I know a couple gentlemen who are extremely bright, and they have not been promoted just because they are not perceived to be supporters of the ruling party. That cannot exist. And I said to the guy, let me tell you something. The Constitution of Dominica says you have a right to associate with whoever party you want. You have a right to have a difference of opinion from the government. And if the Constitution gives you that right and you are victimized, then your constitutional right is being violated. The issue with Dominica is the court system is not working to solve those disputes. We have never had anybody been taken to the courts. And the only way you solve those issues is by having a judgment by the other branch of government, which is the judiciary, that is supposed to be independent. And if nobody has redress from this victimization, what happens? It continues, and the government now oppresses people. And like I said earlier, there are some of those folks that have extreme potential in their jobs and their careers, and they're telling me of the frustration of not going anywhere and being passed over for people who are not as capable just because of politics. There are people who decided. One guy said to me, Len, my conscience was burning me. I can't do it anymore. I have supported these guys, but when the hospital doesn't have equipment, when the police commissioner can say I am a drug dealer and prevent me from going to headquarters, that's a problem. I mean, it's countless stories and stories and stories we heard from people on the ground that tell you they're frustrated, that tell you that we can't do this anymore, that tell you what these guys are doing is wrong. They know it. And part of what I don't see happening is the alternative to the status quo. Who is coming to talk to these people? And instead of, and I mentioned it before, instead of just talking to the people you know who are supporting you, go talk to the people you know that's on the other side. As Alvin said, he spoke to labor rights. Have that conversation. I can have that conversation because some of these people are my family, my friends. I've known them for a very, very long time. People like Matthew Walters used to come to my home to have lunch with when my dad taught at Pable School. So he's a family friend. I mean, from way before he was in politics. Do I agree with some of his policies? Absolutely not. But why can't I talk to him when he came out and said, we have issues, and we don't see that interaction? There's too much polarization. There's too much partisanship. And I think the emotional maturity of sitting down, listening to those people, and getting them to understand that there are other alternatives. They are better than what we see there. They can do better. They have rights. I think it's a matter of empowering these people to understand the only way Dominica can grow is the involvement and participation of each and every one of its citizens. But when we have a system and a government system that thinks one individual has all the ideas, we have a problem. And that is where democracy is dying.
And it's not even so much that one individual has all the ideas, is that one individual has all the power. Kilo Alex says the healthcare system in Dominica is beyond deplorable. My brother's surgery was postponed in December because they didn't even have anesthesia. Then, when he finally had surgery, the only painkiller they had was paracetamol.
Yeah, and Drago, you hear stories like that,
Yeah,
countless stories, and
all the
and there
time. Yeah.
and then there is a false narrative that healthcare in Dominica is free for senior citizens and children. That is not true, because what has happened is the hospital is almost like it's privatized, and for my mom to go to the hospital to get services, she has to go buy medicines and all kind of stuff at other pharmacies. And by the time she get to the hospital, she's spent over $400-500.
Right.
So the hospital tells you, oh, it's free, but that is misleading, and that's the kind of deception that has been run in Dominica,
It's all
and people.
optics. It's all optics.
It's
Yeah.
all optics. It's deceptive
Yeah.
and nasty. That's what it is.
So Ferdinand Lawrence is saying that everybody knows what are the problems. Is asking about solutions. Um, and I get that. I get that. That we want to talk about what can be done, but we have to. But that's the whole point. Folks are saying that you are in Dominica, and the risk of speaking out is very high, because from the stories that we hear, not only you get penalized, your wife get penalized, your nephew gets penalized, your fourth cousin gets penalized. And so I'm listening to you guys speak, and we could easily not be talking about Dominica. And it sounds like we'll be talking about North Korea, where there is this system where this young boy inherited the country's leadership from his father, and he's living a high life, and everybody else is supposed to live that life vicariously through him. So if our prime minister is living in a palace, he's not living in a banana shed, because when people criticize what he was making the country pay for his place, he says some people want him to live in a cow shed. So his concept of what he has and anything else is a banana shed. So you have nothing for yourself, but you should feel good because your prime minister can dress in suits that are worth thousands of dollars. He can live in a palace. He can go around with an entourage of what he said, 50 policemen and multiple vehicles. And so the entire country is doing well because that one man has all this opulence. And then everybody who tries to raise a hand or raise a voice, and some people just doing their work, like for example the letter that came out on the weekend, there was nothing nefarious or malicious about the letter. It was just somebody doing their job, saying that because our supplies are short, we have to suspend elective surgery. But no, how dare you say that? And so it seems like the government doesn't miss an opportunity to show people that you exist at my pleasure. You have your job at my pleasure. And the government has proven that they don't really care about the quality of service to people. Like I say that, for example, we know of Dr. Pascal, a very well qualified and experienced ENT surgeon, only one at the time. And the government chose not to renew his contract to work at the hospital, despite the fact that his services was
I need it.
needed by the people. So the government has proven that it doesn't. The most important thing to it is to maintain absolute power, to pursue absolute power.
And Drago, somebody asked, what are the solutions?
Mhm.
It's difficult in a society when the largest employer is the government, the largest generator of revenue is the government, when everybody is dependent on the government. So therefore, you have to have a governance structure that works for everybody, that is just, that is honest, and a structure of separation where it's independent. The main solution right now is the restoration of good governance in Dominica, and to do that, we have to remove what is there, and put people in position to do the work of the government. And then the people of the country have to feel empowered to understand that the power of governance is in their hand. And why I say that is every 5 years, an individual comes and asks you to vote. Can I get your vote? Can you vote for me? Can you vote for me? They beg, they plead, they do whatever. That's your power. And too many times, people relinquish that power to an individual who gets in office for 5 years and does not work in their best interest.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as much as we have that conversation, our conversation is really to bring out the awareness, the education, the mindset in the people that they have that power. And people are listening. People are listening because they're telling me they are listening. They're telling me I'm hearing you. Drago, I've said so many times, I'm not going to even waste my time anymore. But just by going home and understanding that there are people who are listening, and there are people who are acting on what we talk about, who are speaking out and telling you, Len, what you're saying is right. What you're saying is right. We have to keep fighting. That is what drives us to keep talking. So there is a solution.
And so the solution then you're saying is involvement of the diaspora. Alvin, you have been quiet for a little. I've never seen you this quiet. Uh,
No, no,
but
no, no.
but but but
I'm
but but we if we talk solution, w- what opportunities that
well,
you saw
well,
in Dominica, if you saw any opportunities that can face down some of these challenges that we're highlighting.
yeah. Well, Tony, like I said, there is tremendous opportunity. One of the things I noticed in Roseau, for example, you have quite a few of those Chinese have businesses in Roseau, have stores, little stores in Roseau.
Hmm.
Most of those Chinese are in a store in a building selling. The Dominicans are in a tree outside selling. Okay? That's not what obtained before. You know, and I know all the Dominicans who had their little businesses either in Roseau or wherever. Now it's the reverse. Okay? I shared with you, I tried sharing it on the link, but I wasn't able to. But I sent you a WhatsApp with a book that I have, which is called How Democracies Die. That's a book. It's just about it's a little over 200 pages. Not difficult reading. And the authors are Stephen Levitsky and Daniel Ziblatt. I recommend that this book, that every Dominican who is able to, it's not very expensive, should buy this book and read it. When you read this book, you are seeing a blueprint of where Dominican democracy is going, how democracies die. Okay? I recommend that we read that because one of the persons on us, what are the solutions? But it's like a doctor. Before the doctor prescribe medication for you, he has to be able to diagnose and figure out what's going on. So we have to have a clear understanding at what is at stake. And remember I said earlier, we need to have our electoral system reformed, or whatever term you want to call it. Fix, modernize, upgrade, whatever term you want to use. But it has to be done better than as it is now. And we should not forget that just a little about 2 years ago, maybe we're not 2 years yet, this year will give us 2 years. The CCJ, and Len referenced that, in a government, in any society, the United States, wherever, the government is made up of three branches. The executive, which is the cabinet, in our case in Dominica, the legislature, which is made up of the parliament. And the parliament is made up of both the opposition elected members and the government. That's the legislature. And then you have the judiciary. And they operate.
Having you froze. All right. While we wait for Alvin to come back, um, I think it's a very important comment that Ferdinand is making here. He says, I was home 2 years ago. Before I went home, I was a supporter of the Labour cabal, and I left being a supporter of anything or anyone who opposes Skerrit. The depression and the pressure on the masses can easily be seen and felt. I want to read that again because there's so many people who are not living in Dominica, and for whatever reason, they are strong supporters of the government, right? He says, I was home 2 years ago. Before I went home, I was a supporter of the Labour cabal, and I left being a supporter of anything or anyone who opposes Skerrit. The depression and pressure on the masses can easily be seen and felt. And thank you for making that transition. But again, as we said before, our politics in Dominica have been reduced to colors, as Len said, red, blue, and green. And because of that, we tend to take anything that doesn't come from the party we support with skepticism. We don't go at it with an open mind. So not everybody can go to Dominica, but everybody gets news about Dominica. In this day and age, to tell somebody because you're not on the ground, you don't have a true picture of what's going on. It's crazy with the amount of we hear things here and we text people in Dominica and tell them what's going on. So we get enough information to make decisions. It's just that whenever you talk to somebody who is supporting the government and you say anything, it's like they've already shut their ears down. They don't hear what you say. And so we have to be more willing to be open-minded. And we have to be willing to look at it from another angle. You have your kids. Every once in a while your kids step out of line and you correct them. It's the first time I have seen that there's a government in Dominica and their supporters will accept anything and will anything that they say or anything that they do. They will not even say, well, this person should have done this different. Whatever it is that this government does, it seems like their supporters support them 100%. 100%. It's as if it's a religion, and therefore, when something happens to you, God knows best. So even if the outcome is not favorable to you, God didn't mean any malice to you. We have to find a way, have to find a way to be open-minded, and folks, we have to care about each other, you know. And so I will say that we don't need every single Dominican to support change. Change hardly ever comes from a whole lot of people. Maybe you need 1,000 people to go out in the streets and demonstrate. Maybe you need 500 people to stay home on a strike. You don't need a whole bunch of people. And so the idea that this government is all powerful is just a mirage. And I think the solution lies in rallying the folks who already know it's a problem. That is the solution I am suggesting. The solution is not about changing people's minds if they support the government. I think the solution is in rallying the folks who already know and recognize the evil of the government into a more coherent and a more motivated force, and we will see change. Then what would you say to that?
Hey, so I think part of the root of the problem, I have learned that everything boils down to economics.
Hmm.
So in politics, in religion, the driving force is who controls the resources. And Alvin talked about resources earlier, Saudi Arabia and China. What you see happening with the superpowers is all about money. It's all about economics. It's all about revenue. Part of the issue is because the government is controlled by an individual who controls the resources. Look at how much money we've made through the sale of passports. And from my understanding, an individual who has no affiliation, had not been elected by the people of Dominica, is managing that money. And if you control that money, then you control who gets that resources, who's timed from getting that resources. That's what it boils down to. I think part of the solution is, and Alvin and I have spoken about that. We in the diaspora, we are in the largest economy in the world, which is in the United States. And I think we have to leverage our position in the US by getting involved in small businesses, doing things that generate revenue, and having a linkage for our supply chains in Dominica. For example, coffee. Coffee is one of the largest commodity that's traded in the market after oil and petroleum and so on. And if you drive around the US, you see tons and tons of coffee shops everywhere, donut shops and so on. And I think as diaspora, we're asking people to unite in Dominica, and as the diaspora, we have to lead by example. And I think, Drago, I just completed my MBA. December.
Congratulations, by the way.
I graduated. And what that has exposed me to is the importance of collaboration, business, the importance of generating wealth through innovation and so on. So I think if we can do things like that, then we can go back to Dominicans and say, hey, we have an alternative source of generating revenue for the masses that is independent of the status quo, which is from the government. That way, if there is a counter to the government being the provider of everything, then people become independent. Independence is being able to earn your own money, being able to do certain things. And that's why I said earlier, the reason why the government has such a stronghold is because it's the largest employer. When a country's government is the largest employer, the largest generator of wealth, larger than the private sector, you're going to have problems. Mm-hmm. Any country, you're going to have problems.
And that's why the private sector has been systematically dismantled.
Yes. And what it really boils down to basically is who controls the resources. Because you see what happened in the Red Clinic. You see what happened in the Red Clinic. You see what happened with the housing scheme. You see what happened in everything. All that says is who's controlling the resources and who's distributing the resources and that's what your government is. So unless we create an alternate source of revenue for Dominicans, because like I said earlier, back in the early days, you had banana was king. You had communities like Wesley and Marigot where guys used to sell bananas like crazy and go to the to Astafans and buy Mitsubishi with cash. You had people who had every 2 weeks, every fortnight they would go draw. They were independent. They made independent choice. And if you look at how our country was back in the days, people were independent. And the reason they were independent is because they did not have to depend on a government to give them a house, to send their child to school, to give them a toilet, to give them, basic necessities. You see what I'm saying, Drago? So that is one of the issues we have, and there has to be a diversification of the revenue generation and the resources in that country away from the governance structure, and people like us have to help create that
Create that
alternative wealth.
environment.
Yes.
Definitely. Alvin, do you see a political solution to Dominica from your work on the ground? Do you see a glimmer of hope of a political solution in Dominica? Somebody is saying that all what we say can only be effective after Skerritt leave office.
They
But
may have a point.
Yeah, I believe there is that hope. There's still quite a few folks back home that are engaged in doing quite a bit of how should I say, activist work, and I think there is. But having said that, though, I think I'm not sure if you had the opportunity to listen to Senator Annie Roberts when he addressed Dominicans last week as part of the ERC activity. I think we have to, some of us have to let go of our ego. Let go of our ego and recognize that Dominica comes first more than anything else. And that is what all of us have to put our hands together to save. I think what's her name? Sister Rosie said it very well in her presentation. Sister Rosie Philip, when she came up to present, and she normally refers to it as our main goal is to save Dominic. So yes, you have the Rosie Felix, you have still, the John
you have
Boston,
Afimate, you have Margot,
you
you
have
have
Afimate, you have Margot.
you have
I mean, the list,
Maggie
Maggie,
Peters, yeah.
I
You have a bunch
mean,
of guys.
Tyron, Flacco. I mean, the list can go on and on. So I think what is required is a coordinated effort. And to answer the one of the persons on the live who said what next was the solution, and I was just about to say, but then my system went down, that we must not forget that the CCJ issued a warning to us back in July of 2022, and they didn't mince word about it. They said, hey guys, you guys need to fix this. Until you guys fix that, nothing's going to happen. That's what they told us. In essence, they say, guys, your electoral system is messed up, fix it. And it's give that warning, I would hope, to the government, to all of us Dominicans. So we have to find the way, the guts, the stamina, the courage to eliminate that fear and fix it. That's the first thing we have to fix. We got to fix that to ensure that we have a system. I mean, I've said that over and over maybe on your program and other programs, that Dominica is the only region, the only one that you have more folks on the electors list than the population of the country. The only one, the only country, nowhere else. Nevis doesn't have it, St. Kitts don't have it, St. Lucia don't have it. So we have to fix those things and ensure that we have a system that allows us to elect a government that represents the interests of the people.
I want to ask you a question. I know you're a data guy and you do your research and so on. Do you have a not this last election where it was boycotted, the election before? Do you have a ballpark figure as to how many people voted not for the Labour Party but for another party?
Boy,
It's probably about 12. It's probably about 12,000 or.
It's a little more than that. It was more than that. The 2019 election, it was much more than that.
Okay, so the question, listen to where I'm going with that. All right. So that means there's at least 12,000 people who voted in the last election. I'm using 12,000 as a ballpark because you say safely it's more
conservatively,
than that.
yeah.
There's 12,000 people who voted against the government. who know that the government is not working well for Dominica. But we see meetings and calls to the public where maybe 500 people, if 1,000 people show up, we're lucky. So I know Len says it's about economics, but in a situation where the economics is as it is, you have 12,000 people that vote against the government. I put forward the theory that what we need is leadership, because those people are already in your camp, and
Right.
you cannot inspire 3,000 people to come out in opposition. They already voted against the government. They don't need
That's right.
convincing that the government is bad. So,
Hmm.
so when people ask what's the solution, what's the path to the solution, I think the path to the solution is leadership
Yeah.
on the opposition side. Leadership that can inspire the people to take action. Leadership that can give people a certain level of confidence that if they take action, there's a chance of success.
Well,
Not a
Drago,
half-hearted kind of thing where you bring people together on the bayfront, and when you're done, you tell them drive home safely, and there's no plans as to when next you're going to come together or what's the next stage. Or you boycott the election, but there's no plan as to how you're going to deal with
Yeah.
the
It it
government after they
it
get
but
it
into
but
power. I think there's a lack of leadership.
it
I've been let Len,
it,
let me let
it
Len in to see what
Go
he
ahead,
has to
Len.
say.
Go ahead, Len. Go
but
ahead.
and Drago, that is one aspect of it. I don't think there is one solution that's going to solve all the problems. I think it's a collection of actions and solutions to solve the situation. One aspect of it is a change of government. The reason why you can victimize somebody is that person is dependent on you. Is the wife beater syndrome. That's what we've talked about. So if people have alternative source of gaining revenue and being independent, they can't touch me. I talk because they can't touch me. The government of Dominica doesn't determine my paycheck. So if people have alternative sources of income, then they're going to come out because their livelihood does not depend on what the government says. And I spoke to this gentleman in Sufria. He has a sulfur bath, and he said to me, "Man, I hate to see people sitting by and waiting for handouts. I wake up early in the morning waiting for the sun to rise so I can get to work." And you know what he said to me after? "Man, what you saying there is true, but when you guys leave, we have to stay and face the music. We have to stay and face the
No,
victimization."
but then I'm saying all of that, notwithstanding, I know that's the reality you're dealing with, but I am positioning and saying that in a situation like that, with proper inspirational leadership, there are people that oppose the government and they openly oppose it and they
And
get victimized already.
you
There,
correct. You correct. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying that is true. But in addition to that, you will get more people out if they know tomorrow I don't have to depend on.
I definitely I agree with that as
You see what
well.
I'm saying?
I
So
agree with
so
that as well.
that's why I shared the story with you. The guy tells me he has a sulfur bath in Sufria. It's the bamboo sulfur bath. Really nice guy. We stay talking in there. And he's like, "Yes, I absolutely hate what's happening. The government didn't fix the road since Maria." But the point is, what you're saying is correct. You have to have inspirational leadership. But I think part of
But
Dominica is where am I going to get my daily bread the
yeah, but
next day?
I keep interrupting you because we're coming. But what I'm saying is that out of the 12,000 people who vote against the government, if there is a culture where, just like the same way the government tells people this person is our opposition, don't go to his business. Similarly, somebody can say this person is opposition, let's support his business.
Yeah,
You understand? We don't see any of those kind of initiatives being taking place at all. You understand? I'm just
Yeah.
saying that in spite of all of the difficulty that we face, if we have a movement that looks at it straight in the eye and looking for solutions, there are things that we can do.
yeah,
We're
Yeah.
not we're not just you cannot we can their businesses in Dominica, because they speak against the government, they no longer exist because the government asks its supporters to boycott them. We don't
Yeah.
see a similar thing happening on the opposition side. And that's just one example.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We
Yeah.
we don't see that the electoral reform, for example, we don't see the opposition taking a strong inspirational position. The problem we have in Dominica is because we have somebody in power that can stay in power for 100 years if he chooses to. But in all the electoral reform that is being put forward, nobody is talking about term limits. So where's the inspiration to put yourself on the line for electoral reform? Electoral reform, as the opposition is putting it forward, is merely enforcement of laws that already exist. There's nothing revolutionary about the electoral reform that's being presented. Our problem is that a guy is enough for 20 years. The electoral reform, the first item should be term limits, so we can't subject ourselves to that again.
Yeah.
I'm saying that I'm saying that there is that lack of leadership and strategizing and organization on the part of the opposition, and that is probably 60% of the reason why Scary is still in power. Alvin, go ahead.
No, I agree with you, Tony. I agree with you. I mean, I see what Len is saying, and I understand the point Len made earlier as far as the economic getting people empowered. But even there again, the fact remains that our democracy is so hijacked as it is, that even if you will want to start something on your own, and you just reference it, even if you want to start something on your own, like Len is saying, and it appears that in some way or form that you speak ill of the government or you're not in favor of the government, that may not even succeed. Because like you said, a minister came and he said boycott Brizimat. The rest is history. See what happened. And if you have a business, like Glenn said, government is the largest employer. So you have a business where you're selling goods and services or whatever, you won't get work. So I mean, it's really a dicey situation. But then I agree with you, Tony. I think it requires not just action, but bold and decisive action. I always use the example that in 1977, when we had the 47-day strike, you hear the number I'm calling out? 47. It was more than the number of days that Noah spent on the ark. Noah did 40 days on the ark. We did 47. A movement requires sustainability. Any movement, you read or study any movement anywhere in the world. We just celebrated Martin Luther King's Day. Martin Luther King was assassinated, but the movement continued. John Willis was battered on the road, busted his head and everything. The movement continued. So there is sustainability. It has to be bold decision. We didn't get what we wanted on day one of that strike. On day one, if we had taken a position, well, boy, it's just about 50 civil servants here, guys, so let's go back inside. Day two, we didn't get what we wanted at the time. Day three, day four, maybe we had 100 people if we had that many. But guess what? We hanging in there for 47 days until we got what we wanted. So there are risks involved. It has to be bold. And I agree with you, it can be timid. It cannot be timid. And I'll be honest with you. I may not be able to establish it for you tonight. But if folks back home employed and do the right strategy that we need to do, the current Labour administration government is not difficult to defeat. Because even when Ruzi came in and Ruzi contested in 2000, Ruzi had a certain amount of popularity then. The United Workers' Party, they advocated, or they were the party of corrupt, don't vote for them, and there was this thing going on with the other two parties. And Ruzi won with 10 seats. 10, okay? I'm telling you now, if we take a bold step and we ensure that we have what is called true and fair elections, and I agree with you on the question of the term limit, but if there's only one thing we can do and be bold enough to say nobody outside of Dominica coming in on planes to vote, except if you want to come and vote and you're entitled to vote, you pay your passage, you come, that's fine. But no plane loads come in and vote. The Labour Party as it is now winning no more than 6 seats out of the 21. I'm giving them 6 out of the 21 constituencies. We can debate that on another program. And I'll tell
There's
you
no
where the
debate.
6
I
now.
agree with you 100%.
6 out of the 21. But it requires work. It requires work on the ground as well as work, talk on the radio. I went down to Dominica and I held a meeting with some other folks. We had a meeting with the people of Sophia Scouts at Gallion. The turnout in the house may not have been huge as we would like to, but it was a reasonable, and outside had much more.
And that was that was one meeting. You know, that was your first meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So if we were to have another meeting and another meeting, we can't just have one meeting. We have to have several meetings. So if we're doing the work on the ground and you meet with the people one-on-one on the ground, I stop at the ice cream place on the bayfront, a little ice cream place right there by Jackie Dupine's place. And right inside there buying ice cream, I approach 2 free guys sitting there, customers. I don't know them from Adams. And I just strike a conversation. And right away we were talking, and the conversation kept outside the ice cream parlor all the way walking up to Garway. The guys and I were engaging. That's 3 guys. They might be able to go and convince 3 other people. That's 6. And the other 3 might convert another 3. That's 9.
Yeah. I mean, we're getting a lot
So
of argument from you. We're getting a lot of argument from you on the chat, you know.
from me, argument for me against me.
Agreement.
Oh, agreement.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Maslin says
okay.
we have a movement, but it's a complaining movement.
Yeah. So
TD Joseph said the movement has to start in the village with the village council. Talking on the radio is not a strategy. Mali
and
Ostri says he agrees with
yeah.
you. 6 seats, and he conked them already.
Okay. So, and the other thing I'll say, Tony, the other thing I will say is that um you have to be consistent. You have to be able to stick in there. You cannot go half-heartedly in this thing. You have to stay focused. It requires work on the ground. It cannot be, just going and making a statement on the radio.
You
No.
just make one leak and you run away. One leak and you run away. You
Yeah,
have to stay there and fight.
no.
And so Alvin, let me to take your point a little further. Len was talking about the diaspora involvement, the involvement of those of us who live outside of Dominica. And so the role that we have to play is that we have to organize ourselves so that when the movement is going on in Dominica, we can provide some support for them. I
Absolutely.
remember when there was demonstration, I raised money and sent money to Dominica so they could buy water and,
Mhm,
and have
mhm,
snacks and have some first
mhm.
aid for people that were coming out to demonstrate. There's a lot of us in the diaspora who are willing. It just has to be organized. We criticize the government that we have expertise outside and the government doesn't organize itself to allow us to contribute. But the opposition does the same thing. They don't organize themselves to be in a position to receive support from the diaspora. And that's what Len is talking about. We need diaspora can come together, look at businesses, look at enterprises, and the proceeds from that can go towards supporting a movement in
Absolutely.
Dominica.
Drago, there was
And going back.
Oh,
Go
go
ahead,
Martin.
Len. Go ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead, Len.
So I was listening to NPR the other day, and we knew of the black struggles in the U.S. with Martin Luther King and those guys back in the days. Alvin talked about it earlier. And there was a gentleman who said, I couldn't take a punch. I couldn't take the dogs on the baton. But what he did, he was a businessman. And nobody knew that while there were people who were the face of the black movement, the fight for equal rights in the US, there were people who had businesses, were doing pretty well, and were able to afford lawyers to help Martin Luther King and other guys. And he said several times I had to pay for lawyers for them. And he said I wasn't the one who could be at the front, taking a punch, taking the dogs coming after me. But he played his part. And I think that is extremely important because, and that's why I said earlier on, no matter how much we fight, we have to realize everything in this world is about economics.
Yep.
And as much as we're going to have a movement, and Alvin is right, the movement on the ground has to be sustainable. It has to be sustained. It cannot be you fire up. It cannot be you fire a punch and then you run and hide and you're waiting for it. It has to be a sustained approach. But for you to sustain that approach, we have to have support.
To have the resources.
We have to have the resources. We have to have the financial resources. And I think Where we play a part is, like I said, we in the largest economy of the world, 0.005% of a pie that is trillions of dollars is a lot of money. So I think what we need to do is Alvin is in Atlanta, you in New York. We have to find ways, and every other community in the US, the Israelis do it, the Jewish people do it, every other community in the US. That's what they do. They own banks, they own hotels, the Indians do it. They own all kind of stuff that generates revenue, and part of that revenue goes towards their cause. Part of that revenue goes towards doing things in the country. I think we have to start leveraging our position here. So when we call for a sustained revolution, a sustained demonstration, that we can help those folks so they can continue to do what they need to do. Because really and truly, what drives people to succumb to the violation of their rights is the fact that they still have to go back to the government and ask for their basic needs, and that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is. No, definitely. So, guys, we've done
And the
an
other
hour. Hold
thing,
on, Alvin. We've done an hour and 40 minutes. I'm going to ask both of you guys to give winding up remarks. Alvin, go ahead.
yeah, the other thing I wanted to say to you is that I think if I'm not mistaken, I hope I don't quote wrongly, it was the wife of President Roosevelt that made a statement to the effect, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. And I'm saying that to say our narrative and our approach has to change. This kind of approach where we go on radio and we denigrate supporters of the Labour Party and tell them they're those Labour right and they this and they that, it's a divide and rule tactics. We are doing exactly what Prime Minister Skerrit is doing. We want their votes. And like Len said, there are Labour rights waiting there on the fringe, just waiting and hoping and praying that something will change. But like he said, they're not able to do it now for want of fear, because they have their child in school, they have their little job in the ministry, nobody else is employing, but they're on the fringe waiting. When the Freedom Party won the election in 1980, okay, the Freedom Party was just on the fringe, and benefited from the activists and the movement that took place on the ground, And guess what? You think all the votes that Freedom Party got in 1980 was freedom votes per se? No! They were Labour supporters' votes. Because just about a year or 2 years before that, in 1978, we got independence. Patrick was still on a high. 1979, when Patrick got overthrown, he still had support. People were still supporting the Labour Party then. And the Freedom Party got Labour supporters' votes, as well as maybe their own votes. So the point I'm trying to make is that let's not start castigating these people. Let's approach this thing this year and say, hey, we're all in this together. We want to save Dominica, and we're asking you to come on board and join with us in that movement. We know you're not happy where you are, but here's a different thing that we are creating for you. Here's a different area where you can now be what you want to be, and that's what we want to do. So we have to be bold, and it is what I would refer to, as I've said before, an urgency of now. And this thing has to be sustained. It can be one thing. And both you and Len are right. Again, if I may use the same things, the farmers brought food for us at the parish hall. The business sector brought water for us. Now we have the diaspora that will have to fall in that role. So every $1 you send down is almost $3 EC. So if we send down $300, that's about almost $900, 800 plus EC dollars. So we have a role to play as well, those of us in the diaspora. But I think it can be done, and this year was the year of reckoning for Dominica.
Thank you. Len, go ahead.
Yeah, and I want to agree with Alvin 100%. Like I said, I have a lot of friends that are labor rights. In our conversation, we have to realize that they are also affected. When the hospital doesn't have equipment, they don't ask you whether you are labor right or freedom right or UWPI before you get treatment. If there's no equipment and people are dying because of lack of resources, that has no respect for partisanship. So I think in our conversation moving forward, we have to help people feel empowered. And I feel it's through empowerment that people act, through empowerment that people feel brave and take responsibility for their own life and their own direction. I think through empowerment, we can get that resistance to be sustainable, understanding that every individual has a part to play in the development of the country. And when we talk about resources, the greatest resources in any country, the human resources, because you can have gold, diamond, oil, and everything else. If you do not have the brains and the people to utilize, to transform, and add value to the resources, it's useless. I just want to say my heartfelt sympathy again to the family of Miss Frampton. We all passing through this life. After the initial shock of her passing, I hope it gives every one of us a chance to reflect on our life, understanding that we have a time limit on this earth, and to make sure that the time we spend there is valuable in realizing our gifts, making this earth a better place for our kids, our children, our family, our friends, and being more united for a bigger purpose than ourselves. And that's it.
Thank you, Len. And Dory Drago tells you congratulations on the achievement of your MBA. So
Thanks.
congratulations. So I'm sure you worked hard for it, and
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
definitely. And I want to read this last comment from Ferdinand Lawrence. We are ready in the diaspora to join the fight. Personally, I don't fight to lose. There is no movement on the ground where I can see victory. And that, in a nutshell, it says what I have been trying to say. That when folks look at anything, when we look at anything, we look at the risk that we'll be taking versus the potential reward. And if all the folks on the ground can see is risk, they're not going to participate. If there's no movement that looks like there's a chance of succeeding, because we leave work and we come on the bayfront in numbers, and they tell us get home safely. Now it's time to go. The police give you a little narrow window like that, and you just comply within that little narrow window. You don't push back. You don't do anything. You appear as the weakest thing on earth, and then you tell people, okay, they tell us to stop at 8 o'clock. We're stopping at 7:30 to give you a chance to disperse. Go home, be peaceful, and you don't even tell people we'll come back next week Friday. We'll do it again. Just tell them go home. After you've done that 2 or 3 times, who's going to come out? It's
Yeah,
a waste of time. All you're
yeah.
doing is put a target on your back for victimization, and there's no chance, no sustained effort. So folks, if the takeaway from our discussion tonight is that Dominica is still beautiful, Dominica still has a lot of value, still worth saving. However, there is need for change, and the change that we need is going to come through sustained effort. And there is a role to play in a partnership between us in the diaspora and the folks who are in Dominica. And so I like that this is the first program for the year. We started it on a high note, and I want to keep that sustained um, awareness. And let us be the organizing nucleus, not just talking on this week in interview, but actually, and I know both of you guys and myself and TDN, we raise funds. As as a matter of fact, when I have to send money down, I cannot use MoneyGram anymore. Somebody has blacklisted me on MoneyGram. MoneyGram doesn't allow me to send money because I've sent so many times I've gone to MoneyGram to send money to the guys in Dominica for demonstration. Somebody must have complained that MoneyGram doesn't take my money anymore. We actively support, but as Ferdinand says, we have to find something on the ground that looks like it can be victorious, and we can throw our support behind that. So we're not just all talk. We take action, and and I want to say thank you to Len, thank you to Alvin. When I asked you guys to come and share, it was a bit of jealousy on my part that you guys got to go down and I didn't get to go. So thanks for sharing it with us and the audience. Um, wouldn't it be nice if we could see change in Dominica, where some of us could see the majority of the rest of the Christmases that we have left, we spend it in Dominica? Because I'm ready to go back.
Well, I'll tell you, Tony, this morning when I got up, guess what was the temperature in Atlanta? 12 degrees. 12 when I went up to my car. I said, oh my God, wouldn't it be nice if I could go down there and spend 6 months down there, leave all your weather up here for all you and Trump, and when
Similar
spring comes
experience,
along, come back up. Huh?
Similar experience.
But I
I had a
cannot
seven.
know.
I had a 7
Because if
a.m.
a
meeting.
Malvat take me and I go in that China friendship, I don't know if the Malvat will continue or
If
stop.
you wouldn't die from a diarrhea. I had a 7 o'clock meeting this morning. So when I went out to my car, it was about 5:30 a.m. and it was 18 degrees at 5:30 a.m. And I'm like, what am I doing in New York?
I know.
I could
I
be
know.
impossible of going pull a circle in the beach and take a sea bath and then start my
I
day.
know.
Right?
Exactly. Exactly. So,
But it gives us something to fight for. And what we have to do is to get people to join us in our resolve to do something about the situation in Dominica. And folks, all of you, we you know, we definitely will be calling on you to support. Support. Um, Somebody is posting the cricket scores. Was the score? So somebody put it say Australia, and I'm saying that because there are two young Dominicans on the West Indies team. Yeah,
yep, yep,
yeah.
yep.
So again, all that potential. That Len just said about the people are the main resource of any country, and
Tony, I
and
hope
it,
you post that book in the link to the book that I shared. Tell the people read that book, man. They need to read that.
what was the title? Tell me again.
How Democracies Die. I sent it. I WhatsApp it to you. You can post it in there. I think it's something that's worth reading.
Tell me one of the authors.
Stephen Levitsky, Levitsky, and Daniel
Lavit.
Levitsky, Stephen Levitsky, and Daniel Ziblatt, Daniel
All right.
Ziblatt.
Let me search for it and get the rest. Um, recommended reading. Well, folks, I think we had a really good conversation. I am happy that this is the way season 14 of this weekend interview has started. Alvin and Len, let's pray for best of health for most of us and energy and vigor to really, inspire a fight and to show people that there is another way. All they have to do is to be able to stand up. Scary to only have 50 policemen around him. Um, you know, there are thousands of us. The power of the
Yep,
people is much more powerful than the people in power.
absolutely.
And I'll leave it
Absolutely.
right there. I want to say good night to you, folks. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you for this very spirited conversation and discussion that we had in the chat. My guests, Alvin and Len, as usual, you guys bring so much passion to the program. Thank you for that. To the staff behind the scenes, thank you for making this live. The folks who are mourning the passing of Dinah, we wish you our heartfelt condolences. Good night, folks. We're going to do this again next week, Wednesday. Share the link to it and get folks to understand how these important conversations are. Let's see if we can save Dominica so that Len's children will have the same experience when they bring their children to Dominica and see what a valuable gem our heritage is. Thank you again and good night.